hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space 13.13, Lumberjack. We are back, hello.
Wow, I love chopping wood.
Me too. Whenever I see someone tell me to hug the trees, I should have a photo of all the trees I killed.
You guys don't know this, but before the recording, I was like, I love Aetheral Space as long as it's not another like a flashback, because I wanted to get to Dawn Contest, and then I saw the first sentence was 1 year ago. He hates delivering. He loves to tickle your balls, readers. Just read a different web serial at this point. There's so many on Royal Road.
Okay, that's it. Open keyboard, start reprogramming.
Have you heard of a forum called Space Battles, by the way? I have. Apparently my friend at work used to be a moderator there, and he was telling me about it, and I was like, hey, maybe you could post about Aether there, right?
You told your friend this?
No. Oh. He was just telling me about Space Battles, and then I remembered having heard about it back in the day, and I was like, why doesn't Tan post Aether there?
I don't know, I'll have a look into it.
I mean, this is literally Space Battles, the series. I know that's not the only thing on the forum, but I feel like of all places, Aetheral Space should be on the forum called Space Battles. Yeah, exactly. It's literally called Aetheral Space.
When you really think about it, take place in space.
Shut the fuck up.
Sorry. What?
Oh no, I was joking. Honey, baby, Pookie.
I got it. It's pretty funny.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
You know you're loved, right?
Of course I do.
You're so loved.
Yeah.
Here, I'm giving you a virtual hug. Sending virtual sin forgiveness. Have you seen that video?
This is my word.
The guy is like, virtual sin forgiveness. You are now forgiven. It sends you flying.
Like fucking Biden blast.
1 year ago, even when he had been alive, Tuldris Rain had seemed a stranger. But now in death, Xander's father was truly unrecognizable. The body he'd spent his whole life cultivating had betrayed him in the end. Oh my god, this really is a Royal Road series. He's a cultivator? Is he?
No.
That would be a sick Aether power, cultivation.
I don't even fucking know what cultivation is, to be honest.
It's like, it's like training.
It sounds to me like grinding.
It's literally like, yeah, it's like grinding. So it's like training plus meditation plus eating special shit, and then you get stronger, and then you just keep cultivating power until you eventually become a
Watch me close an international instant right now. That sounds fucking
boring. You say, why would I want to do that? That sounds boring. Like,
no,
that isn't what every Aetheral Space character's goal is.
No, that's not what I said. I said, why would I read that?
Oh, because it's fun. I don't know.
What's fun about it?
It's like, have you ever read like junk food like mangas or like Korean mangas before?
I don't know.
Like, have you ever read Solo Leveling? That's a good example where like you read the whole thing in one night and then you can't remember it ever again afterwards.
I read Tower of God, but I still quite like that, so I don't know if that counts.
Yeah. Like, maybe it's just me, but, like, I'll read a webcomic sometimes, I'll get really into it, I'll spend, like, 12 hours reading it, and then I'll never think about it again in my life and forget all the plot points. Yeah, I finish it all the way. But yeah, that's, I don't know. I mean, there's some good cultivation stuff out there. I've actually been thinking about getting into reading Cradle. Have you heard of that?
No.
That series? It sounded fun, so I bought the first ebook. I just have to actually use my eyes to read it. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that.
With your books.
What?
Do you like the Nami?
The who?
Yeah.
The who?
Remember from JJK, the Nami.
Oh, Nanami!
Yeah.
Why are you calling him Nanami?
I don't know.
I thought you were calling me the Nami, like from One Piece.
I'm like, his friend is called college where he's like, hey, it's the Nami! Hey!
Yeah, what's good, Nami?
Like, going to college is shit.
Alright, anyway. The body he'd spent his whole life cultivating had betrayed him in the end. Muscle had become drooping skin, keen eyes had clouded over, and sturdy bones had become as fragile as sand. Even his teeth had abandoned him, leaving nothing but a dark maw. It was as if Tuldris Rain had been a balloon, and death had taken a pin to him. For nearly a century now, the Tree of Might had made their home on the planet help me out here.
Hydrogyros?
Hydreiros is what I would think, right?
It's up to you.
Hydrergios? No. Why did you write it like that? Fucking cheat.
No,
I hate you. Hydradrius. That's what I'm going with.
Rotulus.
On the planet Hydrodrius, in the home system. Wait, what? The home system's Earth, right?
Yeah.
What planet is Hydrodrius? Tell me what real-life planet it correlates to. Ah. No, it's not still called Mercury?
No, it's called this now.
Oh, that ruins everything about my roleplay character. Oh, no. They named him Mercury because he was the closest thing they saw to the sun. Now it's called fucking Hydrodrius. That's so stupid. Why would they do that? What? Why? Give me one good reason in character why the planet name changed.
Things change over history. Names are mutable. It's been,
but why?
Well, the original name was lost at some point, and
everybody that existed forgot the name.
They left
Mercury.
for a long fucking time and then came back.
Fuck you.
I don't have to justify myself to you.
I have to non-canon my entire character because of this piece of lore.
Some people might still call it Mercury. They still know it was called that at some point.
I flip you off.
Okay.
For nearly a century now,
no one knows about Mercury anymore. No one knows that name. I offered you a hand and you spit in it.
Well, your hand is fake because you said no one remembers anything.
Of course it's fake. Why would they touch you with my bare skin?
This is just a DSCP episode now. For nearly a century now, the Tree of Might had made their home on the planet Mercury in the home system. Naturally, the planet was inhospitable and barren rock, but grand terraforming towers had transformed it over millennia to a verdant, flat grassland, as far as the eye could see, with only occasional forests to interrupt the splendor. The towers stretched up to the sky, huge and black, like grasping black hands, the names of their makers long since lost to history. I was going to say, just do grasping hands. Some said they even predated the Gene Tyrants themselves. Once, Xander had asked his father about them, and for his trouble had only received a dismissive glare and a scrap of wisdom. Do not waste your thoughts on a foe long since vanquished. It had been true and proper. He'd stuffed the advice, the scripture, into his heart with the rest. Those few words bestowed by his mighty father had always been precious to Xander. Why, then, did they now bring him nothing but pain? Toldrus's body had been laid out in the center of the great hall, natural light flowing down from gaps in the wooden ceiling. Over the last 3 days, each of the First Branch's closest confidants had been given the opportunity to see him, to thank him for his service, to say their goodbyes. Now it was Xander's turn. The body was starting to smell. Xander banished the thought immediately. To do otherwise would be to disgrace the man his father had been. A man like that did not simply rot in repose. He had won the battle over life and proceeded to something better. Life through battle. His father had always said that, and his father had always been correct. Life through battle. Bitter tears stung at Xander's eyes, and he wiped them away just as bitterly. That wasn't how an adult behaved. That wasn't how a warrior behaved. Taking a deep breath, Xander slammed his glaive against the floor below, and the sound resounded through the Tree of Might complex, as loud as any bell. It announced the end of the mourning period. It announced that it was time to return this body to the soil. It announced that the Tree of Might had a new leader. Xander's ears pricked up as he heard the distant sound of an explosion. An attack? As he swung around to face the doors, the communicator in his ear clicked on. First Branch, Violence said respectfully. It appears the compound's being assaulted. Our enemies think us weak with the death of your predecessor. I see, Xander replied stoically, finger to his ear. I shall educate them otherwise. He strode forward, oak-brown aether coursing around his form. The light streaming down from the ceiling diverted his path so as not to blind him, and as he spun his glaive ready in his hands, the wind provided no resistance at all. Such was his ability. Xander's aether tutor, a strange man known only as the Teacher, had always referred to his pupil's aether ability as current manipulation, but Xander had always felt it was more profound and amorphous than that. He controlled the flow of all things, the path and speed of the river, the strength of its onslaught, the rage of its crashing waves. All of it was at his discretion. Is this the same teacher that taught Rico?
Yeah.
Nice. The doors opened, forced into obedience by twin gusts of wind. This is interesting, too, because it implies that some people, it's more common than we first thought. Like, originally Aether's presented as your technique as something you technically think out and, like, make, but it seems like some people just kind of, like, make one without realizing it, or they're more prone to making a certain kind, and then that has to be explained to them?
Sometimes, yes. It's an acquirement sort of situation.
Interesting. He kicked off the ground, and the air carried him, sending him flying through, and out into the sunlight. So could he not make other techniques if he wanted to, or is he just like, this is mine, I'm good now?
It's a good technique.
Sure, I guess. Present day. The roar of the crowd was nearly deafening. Ellis planted his hands to his ears as it washed over their group, countless mouths cheering for the beginning of the dawn contest. Ruth planted a reassuring hand on his shoulder, but her face was grim. Somehow, they'd ended up accompanying Rain's entourage to the opening match of the Dawn contest. There'd be multiple matches tonight, but the fight between Rain and Dragon would kick things off. Ruth's heart thumped in her chest. Even if there weren't the circumstances she'd expected, this was another chance to find Dragon, wasn't it? She could understand sending North to replace him in the opening ceremony, but there was no way he'd let the man fight for him. He'd be here, this time, for sure. Their group, Xander, Rain, Violence, Ray, and the bodyguards, had gathered on a floating platform, slowly hovering down into the arena proper. Ruth looked around nervously, the eyes of the galaxy suddenly and unwelcomely upon her. Were they hostages? Was that what was going on here? If they tried to leave, what would happen? Surely they wouldn't do anything too drastic in front of all these people. But then again, that woman Violence was standing very close. In the end, it wasn't Ruth who tested it. As the platform thumped against the floor of the flat arena, Ray stepped off before anyone else, turning towards the tunnels that led backstage. "Well," she said, "this has been a very interesting experience. I'll be sure to write about it in the supplementaries. If you'll excuse me, though." Violence reached a hand out, a big hand, fingers clutched like claws, with white aether crackling around it. It didn't take a genius to see what would happen next, and it didn't take a genius to stop it. Direwolf set! The set manifested around Ruth's arm alone, the warped lupine visage covering her hand like a gauntlet. Violence's hand froze in the air, the fangs of the direwolf inches from her transparent throat. Ruth could see the carotid artery. Ruth could see her target. For a moment, neither Ruth nor Violence dared to move. They both knew it could cost a life. Ray stared unblinking at Ruth, her mouth spread into an open smile, weirdly entranced. Finally, though, the stalemate was broken. "Let them go, Violence," Xander declared. "There are greater interests before me." His gaze was elsewhere, and as Ruth followed it, her heart danced anxiously between her ribs. He was staring at the other side of the arena. He was staring at the figure who was steadily but surely approaching. He was staring at Dragon Hadrian. Dragon had changed his outfit since his appearance at the Dawn contest. A bright white suit with a pale blue tie, like he was some kind of heavenly salaryman. If nothing else, his fashion sense had gotten weirder since he left the group. No more Mel Cardigan?
No, he's traded it in.
I quit Aetheral Space.
He hasn't had the cardigan this whole ever since the time skip. He was lost in the 2 years.
You're dead to me. His bright blue eyes were fixed on Xander alone. Had he even noticed Ruth and Bruno standing there? "Dragon!" Ruth went to step forward, went to open her mouth, went to shout, but too late. 1 second she was in the arena, the next she'd suddenly been transported into the crowd, surrounded on all sides by walls of humanity. I assume there's some technique so that interlopers can't interfere in the main matches. Something at play. An unwelcome voice echoed in her head. I'm imagining like in an RPG, when you go to the wrong area.
Professor Oak's telling you.
"Sorry,"
it squealed.
"Looks like you were in the arena immediately prior to the beginning of a match. In accordance with the rules, I had no choice but to teleport you out. My bad."
Fucking
Gritting her
caravan.
teeth. Caravan! I love Caravan. When are we going to learn more about Caravan's user?
Well, he's part of the Absurd Weapons Lab, but he's not actually present. He sends his ability out to do stuff for him.
I thought Caravan's user was non-binary, or was that the painting person?
That's a painting person.
Gritting her teeth, Ruth forced her way as far forward as she could. But the crush of man could not be conquered, not without drawing more attention to herself than she could afford. Dawn contest or not, Ruth Blaine was still a known associate of the terrorist Zachariah Esmeralda. She swung her head in every direction, trying to catch a glimpse, any glimpse, of what was happening in the arena. In the end, she had no choice but to turn her head upwards, to follow the gazes of everyone around her to the holographic screens floating in the air. They faced downwards, each and every one showing what was happening in the arena. The shape of the battlefield had already started to change. Aether absorbs consciousness, right?
It's like a sponge trait, yeah.
Okay, I have an idea after this. Structures had begun to emerge from the concrete floor. Blocks and pyramids, spheres and rectangles, obstacles of stark geometry. They flew around the circumference of the arena lazily, just large enough to be used as platforms or shields. Not as extravagant as the later matches of a Dawn contest were. but Ruth suspected this would still be a night to remember. Because you mentioned her hiding her identity. Could you make a technique that's like you can see the names of people, and how it works is like whatever that person's been called the most in their life is what shows up? So if they have a nickname...
It would only work on A fuses if that's not the way you want to do it, though. If it had to, like, check the consciousness.
Yeah. And it would, like, sometimes their nicknames might show, or if someone knew the ability, they could game it by having someone call them, like, some stupid name, like, a million times. Yeah. Exactly. Mm.
But yeah, a common thing for like that is like mind control or mind reading things. It basically like runs a check on the other person's Aether and it like just gets the answer.
Nice. As the protector of the supreme air, has Aether ever had a will of its own if it like absorbs consciousness?
Well, that's what Aether Awakenings are. Well, it would not really have its own will because anything it does is something that's been given to it.
Okay.
It would not have the capacity to come up with anything on its own.
Gotcha. As the protector of the supreme air, Musashi had managed to get himself an exclusive observation booth high up in the arena of the Absolute. He stood before the window, arms crossed, looking down at the match that was about to begin. A holographic screen floated loyally at his side, but he paid it no mind. With his eyes as infused as they were, he wouldn't be missing a thing. Xander Rain, Jamilu Aguto noted, stepping alongside him. He's one of the candidates we very much don't want becoming supreme. There was another reason Musashi had decided to attend this match in person, and why he'd left to climb at the hotel with the rest of the phases. He'd needed an opportunity to speak to his new benefactors. Jamilu's hawk-like eyes were fixed on the match as well, while his red-haired companion lounged on the couch behind them. "Why's that?" Musashi asked. "Despite the image he presents, the boy himself is soft, easily manipulated," Jamilu said. "And even discounting him, we have plenty of intelligence on the danger the Tree of Might poses." As he spoke, Jamilu tapped the red halo that floated over his head. A principality. Musashi had heard of the collective Aether ability of the Ingansi people, but he'd never seen it in person before. Oh, that's so cool! We finally have a collective ability! It's finally canon! Is this a combo technique?
Yeah.
Finally! Oh, that's so cool, too. Like, it's a cultural thing. Thank you! See, this is what keeps me going, bros. It's the little things, the little bits of world building in Aetheral Space. I love this. The Principality was effectively a shared database of knowledge, accessible by anyone trained in the technique. History, skills, combat techniques, the potential was limitless. So it's basically like their own internet.
Yeah, but only accessible by people who have the ability. It cannot be hacked into, things like that.
Is it like, could you theoretically teach someone who's not like an Ingansi that, and it's like heavily frowned upon?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yo, bro, you did not pass the vibe check. Because, like, let's say you marry someone that's not Ingansi, right? Would they be allowed in the ability, or is it like, nah,
you would have to
don't
apply
qualify?
to, like, an office.
What about their child?
Their child will be in. Okay.
Apparently, the color of the halo denoted the level of access the user had to the database, with gold belonging only to the Oda! Yo! Tell me about the Oda!
Well, it's like King, the king of the people, basically.
Oda is a king, you're right. One Piece fans, we eaten. Red was right beneath that. Okay, so some things are
Well, like,
is there like
government
what's the
secrets
lowest
and shit.
level?
Yeah, lowest level will be white.
Okay, this is the coolest thing you've invented so far. I'm actually smiling ear to ear. This is so cool. I fucking love Jamilu. Musashi sniffed. I suppose I must agree with you there. While the Tree of Might's respect for the Supremacy's history is splendid, their judgment is perhaps lacking. Warmongers. Oh, sorry, this is Rufus. Warmongers, the man on the couch, Rufus called up. That's the word you're looking for. I ain't the brightest tool in the shed, but even I know letting them into the shisha is a recipe for disaster. Jamilu nodded. And to make matters worse, despite his mental weakness, the boy is no slouch in combat. For the time being, it seems we must put our faith in Dragon Hadrian. Musashi stiffened, his eyes flicking over to the cogitant himself as he strode across the arena floor. What do you know about Hadrian? He asked quietly. Jamilu glanced over. Very little. We know he was part of your admin corps, then he joined up with Esmeralda. After Elysian Fields, though, he's a ghost. Why? Because if you knew Hadrian, Musashi muttered, I don't think you'd want to put your faith in him. No! Betrayed! Wait, how is this guy still alive? I thought he got Boros. Popcorn.
Ladies and gentlemen! The cry of Bretzel Boros echoed through the stadium, amplified and transmitted by countless speakers. It's the moment you've all been waiting for, the true beginning of this historic occasion, the moment when sparks fly and blood spills. The search for the true supreme. The Dawn Contest! Woo! The crowd rippled like an ocean, arms waving in the air as they screamed and shouted and cheered, a chorus of excitement very nearly overpowering the announcer.
Are there like advertisers for the Dawn Contest, or is this
Absolutely.
like too sacred? Okay, I was gonna say. Xander comes out, he's got like fucking Exxon Mobil.
Like fucking sponsors.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't like it, but this is what we need to do for funding.
This is the strength of finance.
No, he would be ashamed of it. He hates the strength of finance. They hate the strength of finance.
You're right. I remember the speech.
Yeah. In one corner, the host went on, undeterred by the sheer noise. The man they call the Shooting Star, the mysterious coadjutor with a penchant for spectacle, Dragon Hadrian.
Why does he speak like the fish on SpongeBob?
Some in the audience lifted their scripts, screens tinted a bright blue to show their allegiance, and waved them back and forth.
Oh, they gave him a color. That's cute.
And in the other corner, the young first branch of the Tree of Might, son of the Redwood, it's Xander Rain. As Xander thumped his glaive against the floor, his supporters in the stands stomped down in unison. A drum beat seeing him off to war. He walked towards his opponent without hesitation, and his opponent did the same. The two of them continued marching forward until they were truly face to face, blue eyes staring into brown, brown eyes staring into the blue. Even as the excitement of the crowd reached a crescendo, totally overpowering any other noise, they didn't so much as flinch. They didn't even blink. Not until the one important, vital word was heard over the din. Begin! Xander moved first. In one smooth, fluid motion, he dropped to one knee and spoke. I surrender, he said. My supreme. The cheering stopped.
What? My God, you were so... Why did he make a whole fortress teleport to do that? Tan.
Popcorn.
No, tell me. Fuck you.
Perhaps if you continue, we'll find out what's going on.
You've tickled enough balls. Oh my God, that's like... Alright. So, 1 year ago. The front of the Tree of Might's great hall exploded inwards as Xander was sent flying through it, falling into a pitiful heap before the pedestal where his father had been laid to rest. He had suffered, that was plain to see. Cuts and bruises covered his body, and his right arm dangled useless and broken from its socket. As he forced himself to his feet, he had to squint to see properly, as the beginnings of a black eye were already making themselves known. Xander calmed himself, ragged breathing slowing down. He wasn't defeated, not yet! It was true that this enemy was formidable, but they weren't invincible. Even though Xander had been sent flying by that last exchange, he'd given as good as he got. The enemy's severed arm was clutched in Xander's good hand, orange-tinted blood oozing from the stump. Wait, orange? Xander frowned at the odd coloration. He'd assumed this mysterious foe to be a coadjutor from his appearance, but was he actually some kind of scurrant instead? There were scurrants designed to resemble more prestigious subspecies after all, so the reason you're losing, his enemy's voice cut through the fog of dust, is because you don't know where to go. Slowly, steadily, his foe appeared through the gloom. Just a silhouette at first, but even that was enough to make Xander's heart drop. The silhouette had all its limbs, after all. Some kind of regeneration. This was hopeless. Twin dots of blue light regarded Xander. That man behind you, the great redwood. You're still waiting for him to get back up and show you the way. It's an impossible wish, believe me, I know. As the silver-haired coadjutor finally emerged from the cloud of debris, Xander hurled the severed arm at him as straight and as fast as a missile. It never even reached him, fizzling away into blue aether right before it would have made contact. Xander's good arm trembled. "Shut up!" he hissed. "If I was wrong," the man said, his voice as calm as ever, "you'd have an argument to refute me with. But you're letting a corpse decide what happens to you. It's sad to look at." "Shut up!" Xander roared. The flow of the world acquiesced to him. Currents of wind roared through the great hall. plucking the flames from their torches and converging upon the enemy. The flow of the fire changed too, concentrating itself, becoming more ferocious, orange flame brightening into blue. An ordinary person would have been incinerated in an instant. But Xander was already well aware this was not a normal person. Again, the fire didn't even reach him. As the flow of flame subsided, the worst the Khajiit had suffered was a slight scalding of the skin, and even that was quickly healing, gaps in the epidermis being filled in as if they'd never even been there. "Let me show you," the man said, holding his palm out. "This is what you should have done the second he died." Xander threw himself out of the way as the flames, recorded and now manifested, were released back out of the enemy's hand as a single stream. The torrential blue flame blasted past him, striking the pedestal and the body lying upon it. As Xander whirled his head around in shock, he was just in time to see the already blackened skeleton of his father be blasted apart entirely into ash. The flames ceased. Xander opened his mouth, but no words came out. There were no words to be said. It wasn't even that his thoughts weren't reaching his mouth. He couldn't even think of anything. The inside of his mind had been cremated as well. A shadow fell over him. Slowly Xander looked up and saw that the cogitant was looming before him. Darkness had fallen over his face, and so his glowing blue eyes were the only trace of its expression visible. Oh, that's cool as shit. "I did nothing just now," he said softly. "That man was already dead. Whether his body still existed or not, there was nothing more he could do for you. He had no path to the future." Xander trembled, then flinched as the cogitant extended an open hand. "I, however, do have that path. My name is Dragon Hadrian. Come with me," blue aether crackled, "and I'll show you the shape of the new world." For a good long moment Xander lay there in silence, staring at the hand as if it were a bomb. His mouth was dry, his throat was dry, tears brewed from his eyes. At the edges of the room, the other members of the Tree of Might, exhausted by the furious battle, began to trickle in, observing. Xander opened his mouth to say something. "Attack! Finish him off! We can defeat him together! Don't let us be defeated now! Victory is still before us! Don't falter! Life through battle! Life through battle! Life through battle!" They were the correct words. They were his father words. Xander went to say them, but instead he found himself reaching up and clasping the offered hand. "Show me," he gasped. Dragon Hadrian smiled. "We have a lot of work to do." How come burnt epidermis heals, but not the shit during his
Well, it's
inner melee?
it's the gaps in his skin that are healing, so it's making new skin.
That's not how burnt epidermis works.
He tore the bits off. Smell.
I just ask for consistent internal rules. It's not a high bar. Come on now. I do like it, though. This was a good chapter overall.
Thank you.
Okay, so tell me about the Ingansi people first and foremost in the Oda. That's my
They're one
big...
of the big players in the UAP, hence why they have a Nebula representative. So they're part of like the council, the council, the leaders. They're one of the 10.
Okay.
The head of state is the Oda, who is like the king. Basically, he's a monarch.
So it's familial. It's not like elected.
It's elected, though. Yes. No, sorry, it's
Oh,
familial.
but it's like
sorry.
for. Okay, yeah.
So it's a monarchy, and they are the also people who the old demons of the dawn came from. So they were all formerly a family of Inganshi warriors.
Oh, so they would still have all that info if they have high enough access in their technique.
Yeah.
That's
So
cool as
if,
shit!
If for whatever reason the old demons of the dawn like had human bodies, they would still have principalities.
So I have a question. With the concept of the principality and how long it's existed, how come the Ingansi people don't know about like the old world history?
It's not existed. Their culture would have begun post Thousand Revolutions.
You said though that they had shit from the guards, right?
The what?
From the old demons of the dawn or whatever.
Yeah, those are.
That was 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, they've got so if they started at the Thousand Revolutions. Old demons of the dawn fought against supremacy.
Okay, so even back then, all that had already been lost.
Well, they from before that point, they would they don't have that perfect information prior to that point.
Right. So that just then, but I'm saying even 1,000 years ago, all that info was already lost.
Well, there would have been certain information that was more easily accessible then, but stuff like pre-Gene Tyrant stuff was still generally concealed and kept lost and not really recovered.
I gotcha. Okay, so they'd have some stuff.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Knight asks, what is the afterlife situation with the final church and or followers of Y? Is there a good place and bad place?
Well, generally, the Paradisus would say that Y itself is the afterlife. It's a place to be reached or created. It would be a more traditional sort of like Catholic Christian sort of thing with the Superbians. There's very much his Y's nice place, and if you're good, you'll go there.
I gotcha.
The notion of good, though, might differ. It's basically more
or if you follow his
prestigious.
teachings or whatever.
If you show like sufficient ambition and prestige and whatnot, you will go there.
Heaven's a place to be earned.
Exactly, earn your place.
Okay.
Show you're worth it.
And if you're not worth it, you go to the junkyard.
Maybe not specifically the junkyard, but maybe it ceased to be.
JTKC says, if I recall correctly, Mr. Fix was some kind of mass-produced superpugnant. What are some other skirnt mini-subspecies out there that have a lot of them around, but not common as the main ones?
You would get, like, there would be equivalents for other subspecies. You'd get, like, super umbrants, let's say, that you would probably get very few of those, though, because of the umbrant situation with the Gene Tyrants. But they would be more like full-on changelings. They would be much more capable of changing their shape.
Oh my god, I love super umbrants.
Super Cogitants you probably would not get because their brain too smart for their own head.
I imagine a super cognate would be the type of being that's like brain is so large that its body can't move, so they can only exist like hooked up to tubes.
Exactly.
Like the fucking Emperor in Warhammer 40k. They have one of them strapped underneath Azum Ha. He handles all the operations. Oh man. Alright, well thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!